Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really fundamental. It's about getting reliable information from focus groups, especially, consumer insights.
It sounds pretty simple on the surface, doesn't it? Just
Yeah.
get some people together, ask questions.
Right.
But the real issue, and our source material today, a blog post that really digs into this, points this out clearly. Even focus groups you think are well designed, well, they can be susceptible to all sorts of subtle biases.
Uh-huh.
And these biases can creep in and honestly completely skew your results, sometimes before you even start the analysis.
Bias creeping in before the analysis. That's pretty scary if you're basing big decisions on that feedback.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to really unpack these common biases. We'll look at the strategies researchers use to try and reduce them, and then dive into how technology is actually helping make these insights more reliable.
Yeah, and this isn't just academic stuff. I mean, think about it for yourself. If consumer feedback is off, it can, send product development in totally the wrong direction.
Or mess up marketing campaigns.
Right. Or lead to just, flawed business plans. Getting this right genuinely impacts the stuff you use every day, the services you interact with. It has real-world consequences.
Okay, so let's get into this challenge then. The source starts by saying bias often shapes the outcome during the session itself, not just after.
That's a key point. It's fundamental in market research. You really have to understand these subtle human influences because they're active while the conversation is happening.
Not just in how someone writes up the notes later.
Exactly. If you don't account for them, what you think are insights might just be, noise. Or worse, misleading information.
Okay, so what are the big ones, the common biases the source calls out? Let's start with moderator bias. How does the person actually running the focus group affect things?
Oh, it's huge and often totally subconscious. A moderator's, tone of voice, maybe a slight facial expression, even a little nod or a quick frown, these can signal approval or disapproval without them meaning to.
Really? That's subtle.
Absolutely. Participants pick up on these cues, especially in a group. And they might adjust what they say, maybe consciously, maybe not, to sort of align with what they think the moderator wants to hear.
So my own little unconscious nod could actually change the data I'm collecting. Yikes.
It definitely can. Then you've got dominant respondent bias.
Yeah.
Most people have seen this happen in a meeting or something.
Oh yeah, the person who just takes over.
That's the one. In a focus group, you get one person with a really strong personality, or maybe they're just very confident in how they speak. They can really sway the others. People who are maybe quieter or less sure of themselves might just clam up. They hesitate to share if their opinion's different, or they just stop contributing.
So you end up missing out on potentially crucial viewpoints. It looks like everyone agrees, but really it's just one or two people dominating the airtime.
Precisely. And that ties right into the next one, groupthink. Just being in a group creates this social pressure. It's natural. People generally want to fit in.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the odd one out rocking the boat.
Exactly. So you might have individuals who actually feel differently, but they sense where the group is heading, and they just suppress their real thoughts. They go along with what seems to be the majority view.
Even if they don't really agree privately.
Even then.
Yeah.
And the result is you lose all that interesting nuance, the different angles, those little disagreements that are actually really insightful. It all gets smoothed over.
So it's not just one loud person. It's the whole group dynamic kind of pushing towards the middle, losing the edges. What about confirmation bias? How does that work here?
Okay, so this one often hits the moderator or the researcher. And again, it's usually unconscious. They might go into the focus group already having some ideas, maybe some hypotheses about what they expect people to say.
And then they sort of look for answers that fit their expectations.
That's it, exactly. They might, without realizing it, give a bit more attention, or maybe just some positive nonverbal feedback to answers that confirm what they thought. Maybe they move on a little quicker from comments that challenge their assumptions or seem kind of out of left field.
So it makes it harder for genuinely new ideas to surface. You're kind of steering the conversation back to what you already believed.
Yeah, it's like creating an echo chamber without meaning to. Then there's recall bias. This was about memory.
Sounds like it.
It is. It happens when you ask people to remember past experiences, like how they felt using a product a month ago. The thing is, memory isn't like a perfect video recording.
Right. It gets fuzzy.
Yeah, and it can be colored by how they're feeling right now in the moment they're asked, or there might be gaps they fill in, details get blurred.
So if I'm in a good mood today, I might remember a past experience more positively than I actually felt at the time.
That can definitely happen, or details just get lost. So feedback based purely on recalling things from the past is inherently a bit less reliable than, say, observing someone using something right now.
Okay. So the source basically says recognizing these biases is step one, but it's not enough. You have to actively try and reduce them.
Yes, that's the critical part. Proactive reduction.
So how do you do that? The source mentions that this work starts way before the actual session.
It really does. It's about careful planning in the setup phase, having a really skilled facilitator running the group, and using the right kinds of tools.
Hmm.
The goal of all this is to make sure the insights are as close to the participant's actual reality as possible.
Not warped by the process itself.
Exactly. Not shaped by unconscious influences or just the loudest person in the room.
So what are some of those practical strategies, the non-tech ones?
Okay, first up is neutral facilitation. This is all about the moderator's skill. It goes way beyond just asking questions.
Right.
Their job is to create this environment, this safe space, where everyone feels they can share honestly, but crucially, without being led in a certain direction.
How do they do that?
Well, a big part is asking truly open-ended questions. Not leading ones like, you love this feature, don't you?
Yeah.
But more like, tell me about your experience with this feature. And maintaining really neutral body language and tone. Even if a participant says something really surprising or critical, it's about guiding the conversation's flow, not its content.
That sounds like a tough balancing act, being engaged but perfectly neutral.
It takes real skill and practice, absolutely. Then there's thoughtful group structure. Basically, who you put in the room matters a lot.
Like the mix of people.
Exactly. You want diversity. People with different backgrounds, different experiences, different viewpoints. If everyone's too similar, you risk getting a very narrow view.
And maybe amplifying certain biases common to that one group.
Precisely. A more diverse group makes it harder for just one perspective or one type of person to dominate the whole discussion.
Makes sense. And that helps with the groupthink issue too, presumably.
It does. And you can proactively fight groupthink in other ways too. Like really large groups where everyone speaks in turn can sometimes make that pressure to conform even worse.
So what do you do instead?
Well, one tactic is maybe breaking the main group into smaller clusters for part of the discussion, get more intimate conversations going.
Okay.
Another really effective technique is having people write down their own thoughts on a question first, individually, before anyone starts talking.
Ah, so you capture their unbiased personal take before they hear anyone else.
Exactly.
Yep.
It locks in that initial perspective before the social dynamics start influencing them. It's a great technique.
That does make a lot of sense. But, okay, the source then says, look, even if you do all this planning, you have a great moderator, you structure it well, focus groups are still, people interacting. Bias can still sneak in.
And that's where technology starts to play a really crucial role. The source brings in AV capture tools, audiovisual recording.
Like filming the sessions.
Essentially, yes. It's about creating an objective, verifiable record of exactly what happened, moving beyond just relying on someone's notes, which can be subjective, or memory, which we know is fallible.
Right. So the video footage itself becomes a primary data source.
Exactly, because it captures not just what was said, but how it was said, the tone, the pauses, the body language, the energy, all that context that gets lost in just a transcript or summary notes. It gives the research team a much richer, more reliable data set.
Okay, let's break down how AV capture helps, according to the source. First point, objective records.
Right. This is the core benefit. AV gets everything. The full conversation, yeah, but also the hesitations, the excitement, the posture shifts. That context is just impossible to capture fully in writing. It's the closest thing to the unvarnished truth of the session.
You can actually see the subtle reactions, the eye roll someone tried to hide, or the genuine smile that notes might just miss. What about remote observation? How does that help?
Okay, this tackles a tricky bias source.
Mm-hmm.
Stakeholders watching behind the mirror. The clients or product managers.
Yeah, the one-way mirror thing.
Participants often know someone's back there. And that awareness can change how they behave. They might feel like they're performing or being judged.
So they might not be as candid.
It's a risk. AV tech allows those observers, the stakeholders, to watch the session live, but from somewhere else entirely, maybe their office miles away.
Oh, okay.
It removes their physical presence from the immediate environment of the focus group room. This helps preserve a more natural, less self-conscious dynamic among the participants.
That's a big deal, removing that observer effect. What about reporting capabilities?
Good AV software lets you do more than just record. It helps integrate data across multiple sessions much more efficiently than trying to piece together notes manually. You can, like, tag specific moments or themes as they happen or during review.
So you can find things easily later.
Yes. And then you can instantly pull together all the moments tagged with ease of use, for example, across 10 different focus groups. It makes the analysis way more efficient and allows for much broader pattern spotting.
Easier to see the bigger picture across all the data. And how does playback help specifically with bias?
Playback and review is crucial for catching things after the fact. When you rewatch a recording, you almost always notice things you missed live.
Like what?
A subtle reaction from someone who wasn't speaking. A moment where the group energy shifted. Maybe a point where the moderator unintentionally led the witness a little.
Oh, okay.
It lets the research team refine their interpretations, maybe challenge their initial takeaways, and honestly, it helps them get better at moderating for the future by seeing what actually happened.
So it's a feedback loop for the researchers themselves.
Yeah.
What about tagging and metadata? You mentioned tagging.
Yeah, this gets really powerful. Good software lets you create custom tags, maybe during the session, maybe after. You can mark moments by theme, by participant, by sentiment, maybe relating to a specific feature.
Whatever categories matter for the research.
Exactly. Then you can search your whole video archive and instantly find every single instance of that tag across maybe hours and hours of footage. It pulls you away from just relying on memory or subjective summaries.
So I could find every time someone expressed frustration about the checkout process, for instance.
Precisely. It's much more data-driven. And finally, multi-angle recording.
Multiple cameras, why?
Well, in a group, people aren't always facing the same way, right? Someone might be talking to the person next to them, not the main camera or the moderator.
Okay, yeah.
Using multiple cameras, make sure you capture everyone's reactions, everyone's contributions, no matter where they're sitting or looking. It gives equal visual weight to all participants, not just the ones who happen to be facing forward or speaking the loudest.
So you don't miss the quiet person's insightful frown just because they weren't talking at that moment?
Exactly right.
Mm.
And the source sums this up really well with a quote from Kevin Marty, who's the president and co-founder of IVS. He says, "When you eliminate memory gaps and minimize in-the-moment assumptions, your research becomes dramatically more reliable. AV capture makes that possible."
That really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's about plugging the gaps where human error or subjectivity can distort the actual data. The source also mentions a few specific software features that enable this, like custom tagging, remote viewing.
Right, and workflow integration, making sure this technology fits smoothly into how research teams already work, from the recording itself right through to the final analysis and report.
And they give a couple of examples of the tech itself.
Yeah, they mentioned VLLT, described as like a secure platform mainly for fixed research facilities. High-quality recording, secure archiving, plus all those tools for searching, reviewing, tagging. Sounds like the kind of system you'd build into a dedicated lab.
Okay, but what if you're not in a lab? What if you need to do research, say, in someone's home or a rented space?
That's where they mention Roam. It's presented as a portable AV kit, something you can easily transport and set up pretty much anywhere.
Okay.
But still providing, professional-grade recording. The idea is to get that same consistency and high quality, even if you're not in your usual controlled environment.
So the tools are there to support reliable capture, whether you're in-house or out in the field.
That seems to be the point, yes.
Okay, so let's bring this all back home, back to you listening to this. Why does sorting out focus group bias actually matter in your world?
Well, because at the end of the day, better research, less biased research, leads to better stuff, better products, better services. If companies and organizations get a clearer, more honest picture of what people really think and need, they're much more likely to create things that actually work for people, things that resonate.
So reliable research has a direct line to, well, things being better designed and more useful for us.
Absolutely. It means businesses make smarter decisions, and ultimately consumers like you and me have a better experience.
It really is the engine behind making things work well. So minimizing this bias, it's not just some, academic detail. It's crucial for genuinely understanding people.
Couldn't agree more. Combining those solid, proven moderation skills with the objective record-keeping power of AV tech, that really seems to be the way to boost the quality of insights and make sure decisions are based on solid ground.
Well said. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something for you to maybe think about later. We've talked through several types of bias that can subtly warp group conversations: moderator influence, dominant speakers, groupthink pressure, confirmation bias, even just faulty memory.
Hmm.
Consider the groups you're part of. Maybe it's work meetings, community groups, maybe even just discussions with friends or family. How might it just being aware of one or two of these dynamics, like groupthink or confirmation bias, change how you listen to or interpret what's being said in those everyday settings?